Hello, and welcome back to Mini Adventures Mini. This week I am continuing along with working on my Warmachine models from the Infernals faction. I've been having a lot of fun painting them, and this week I am working on another one of the Infernal Horrors, one of the big monstrous beasts. This one is called a Desolator, and I don't really know if there's much lore behind it. It's just basically another flavor of demonic horror, so let's go ahead and jump in and I'll show you how I painted this one. Alright, so here are our before images for this model. Again, I've gone ahead and done the basing and priming ahead of time on this one, just to get it out of the way since it's a fairly basic process. I'll go back and forth between showing it and not showing it on occasion. And I apparently lost the first little bit of footage here, but all I'm doing here is using my mummy white color from my army painter to just quickly apply a base coat to everything before I use my black contrast and start coming in here to do the claws and whatnot. You can definitely do the application of the white with normal paintbrush techniques. I just like to use the airbrush because it's a lot faster. And then I've just grown very partial to this black contrast paint, and I'm starting to use it just about all the time. I'm trying to find what the limitations are. It seems to work pretty well for fabric and cloths. I imagine it would work less well on things like armor, but I haven't had the chance to try it yet, so I'm not entirely sure. It might work just fine, but it seems to work pretty good on fabric and cloths so far, so it might become a staple for those kinds of things whenever I need them to be black, so that's pretty straightforward. I also had trouble with this guy because his foot claws are all curled in under him, and this model as a whole is kind of a good example of a good model to potentially paint in what's called sub-assemblies, where you fully paint different parts of the model before you assemble it. So like on the arms and legs, that probably would have been useful on this guy. And then I take my contrast medium and I mix it with that ash gray paint to get myself this kind of pale gray wash that I've been using for these horrors, and just liberally apply it everywhere. This has kind of been my secret for getting this white skin tone to look good and be done really quickly. The black wash is just too strong, and the technical medium for the contrast paints is really great at turning just about any paint into a really nice wash. So that's why I've been using it this way, and I think the results kind of speak for themselves. It's definitely not perfect, but for doing something quick and easy, I haven't found a much better way to do it than this. So. But once that's all setting in, starting to dry, I'm going to use my dark stone to come in here and get my basic color blocking in for my dark tone on all the sand and stone that this guy is standing on. This is also a bit difficult because I'm just trying to get in there and avoiding getting this dark color on this guy's white skin, so it can be a little bit of a pain. But just a little bit of patience and fiddling and a little bit of cleanup and touch up here and there, and it's not too bad. And we're able to get it all set up the way I'd like, starting with a larger brush and going down to a smaller brush just to dot in some spots. And when it dries, I just take some actual black wash and just kind of flood the base. This gets any areas that I might have missed and gives me kind of a black in the recesses. Once everything else is dry, I then pull out my pure red. It's the brightest, high saturation red color I have in basic. I could go brighter, but I don't want to mix it with white and get like a pinkish color, so this works pretty well, so that's what I'm going for. And this model has a bunch of cavities throughout it that it basically just need to fill in with red. It's kind of just basically coloring inside the lines. It's not too difficult. I do have to go up and touch up a couple areas a few times, but overall it's a fairly simple process. As you can see, just find the crevices, fill them in, be as careful as possible, and these accent colors really help it stand out, because I found that this color scheme on these horrors, it's only like 3 colors. So overall, it's actually like a pretty boring color scheme. It's kind of visually striking, but like this is the second time I've painted one of these horrors, and it's almost kind of like a boring color scheme almost. It's not actually all that interesting to try and paint, surprisingly. Uh, it's kind of like a minor technical challenge where you've got to be careful with your brushwork, but it's also not that difficult to correct. I got to play around with it a little bit more here with the insides of his cannon hands that he's got here. I made it more opaque and saturated in the center, deeper down, and then I thinned out the paint to make more of like a glaze so that it kind of thins out to like a pinkish consistency towards the edge, trying to get almost like a glow effect, but not quite. And then I also used the same thinned down red paint to get these like glowing red orbs, and they kind of just look like sore blisters when I first do it, but after a good handful of coats to get the saturation up, you get the same kind of demonic red looking effect, I think. So it looks a little bit odd for the first couple of coats, and I wasn't sure if this was going to do what I wanted it to, but the more patient I was, let it dry, do another coat, repeat a few times, and I think I managed to get the effect that I was looking for, and I was pretty happy about it. So it looks a little bit odd, but as this will go on, you'll see it starts looking a little bit better. You can see even there, just at like the second coat, maybe the third coat. It's a little hard to keep track with it going this quickly, but with each coat it improves the opacity and the saturation so that you get more of a solid red look rather than a desaturated pink that looks like it's just a blister or something forming on there, which is not the look I'm going for, definitely. But while I'm letting stuff dry, I'm just trying to pick out all the spots that I want to have this kind of red effect going on. So I got a few areas on these upper talon arms that he's got. This guy has so many limbs. He's like a spider. He's got like a total of 8 limbs, so I guess he is kind of like some sort of spider. I hadn't really thought about that. Kind of interesting. So let's see. I also just decided to just go full in here on all these crevices on the top of his body here. I started off kind of frugally to start with because I wasn't sure where I was going, and then later on I'm like, nah, I'm just going to get all of it. And then here I'm going to finish up the base using my uniform gray to do a thorough dry brush so that you'll still have some of the black wash in the recesses and a little bit of the dark stone as kind of a transition. It's just kind of the darkest, and then I lightly dry brush on top of that with the skeleton bone to give kind of a tannish look. It really nice natural rocks. I also just use a little bit more watered down red to do a ton, and I don't do very many coats, just leave it as the desaturated pink color. Multi-use for the paints, it works great. And then I also do my basic basing stuff here, marking the front half of the base in red because of the rules for this game. Useful to know information, but it's fairly basic. And at this point I'm just kind of doing some touch-up. I throw some bone on the teeth just to kind of bring everything together, and going around doing touch-ups. I changed my mind on this guy's like little elbow nubs here and decided to make them black as well, so I touched those up. And then the last step is just a thorough application of varnish. Nothing fancy, but I find that the varnish tends to help bring all the disparate parts together. Also, this contrast medium came out a little bit shiny when it dried, so this helps tone that down a little bit. And here are the final images. I definitely think it's a successful looking, horrific, infernal, demonic creature with hell energy radiating out. And now I think I might be ready to move on to the next project. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed that. I enjoyed putting this one together. I feel like I'm starting to get my technique for painting these horrors at least somewhat down. It's making it a little bit easier, and it should be fairly simple to do any more in the future, just with slight variations on the different types and whatnot. So, if you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up. It really helps. And if you want to see more of my videos, please subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever any of my videos go up. If you have any feedback at all, please give me a comment. And for everybody's information, I have now finally set up a Patreon page for my YouTube channel, just in case anybody would like to go check it out. I'll put a link for it down in the description. I appreciate any sort of support that I can get, and if anybody's willing to throw anything my way, I'd be eternally grateful, and I'm hoping to expand this going forward. But with that, I'll go ahead and sign out, and I hope to see everybody again here next week.